Guys who earn well share stories about girls who are into money. I work a regular job, earn a decent salary, but we're not talking about crazy amounts. However, I know how to handle money. Last year, I bought my first house. Shortly before buying the house, I was dating a girl. Things didn't work out between us, and I ended it. A year later, out of the blue, she texted me and asked me to meet her for coffee. I was cautious but agreed. We chatted, and everything seemed fine. Then she asked if I had thought about getting back together. I said no. Then she told me that she was living in a place with terrible neighbors, and she needed to move away from them. But she also just lost her job, and she doesn't have money for new housing. She asked if she could move in with me. When I got my driver's license at 17, my dad bought me a Mercedes as my first car. It wasn't a super-duper luxury model, but still, it was a Mercedes. And the car was better than 95% of other high schoolers' cars. Here are some things that happened to me. Girls would approach and ask, "Is this your car?" and start flirting heavily if I answered yes. Girls would hang around the car, waiting for me to return just to talk to me, even if I spent 30 minutes in the supermarket or cafe. About 3 years ago, I started dating a girl from my hometown. We both grew up on neighboring farms, and we both had challenging childhoods. I managed to escape poverty, but she couldn't. After a few months, I realized I was covering her family's expenses. I bought her brother a brand new car, which he crashed, and her mother a new kitchen. A year later, she didn't want to spend much time with me, but she was very keen on spending my money. In the end, I spent over $200,000 on this girl. I broke up with her when she demanded that I transfer all my money to a joint bank account. Minus 12 years ago, I enjoyed buying and fixing up crappy used cars, then driving them. At that time, I also wore high-quality cubic zirconia diamond-like earrings on my ears. They cost only about $40, but everyone thought they were expensive, and I often received compliments. In short, this girl and I initially just exchanged messages. Then I suggested meeting up. I told her that my birthday was coming up soon. I was just over 20. I would be celebrating it with friends at a bar, and invited her. I went there alone after work. She was brought there by our mutual friends. The party included all our mutual friends and many of mine she didn't know. Everything was going very well for us. We spent most of the evening alone, ignoring our friends. The evening was coming to an end, and it seemed to me that everything was going well. She kissed me. I even thought, great, everything is going well. She kissed me in a public place in front of our friends. We started to part ways. She stood in the corner with my friend's girlfriend, chatting about something, and then she messaged me. I know they say you can only text 3 days after the first date, but I think we could grab lunch in a couple of days. I'm free on Thursday. I replied, okay, and our group finally headed to the parking lot. I got into my beloved beat-up pickup. Started it not on the first try, but eventually, it started, and we drove away. The day before our date, she canceled it. I thought it was not a big deal. When I tried to reschedule it for another day, she kept refusing and avoiding a direct answer. I managed to find out through my friend's girlfriend, who asked her why she suddenly changed her feelings towards me. She admitted to her that she liked me only because she thought I had a lot of money, judging by the earrings I wore. But then she saw my beat-up car and realized that nothing would work between us because she didn't want to get into an accident in such a car, and I earned little money. A few years later, she married some ugly guy with a good income. They told me that their family life is falling apart, and she has been constantly unhappy since they accidentally had a child. I returned to my small quiet town in southeastern Europe after 10 years of absence. During this time, I dropped out of university, got a job, then found a better job, eventually landed my dream job at one of the world's largest IT companies, moved to another country, started freelancing, working from home, and returned to my homeland where everything is much cheaper. I'm not rich, but I earn the average monthly salary of our country in a day. In fact, I don't even have time to spend this money. So I save it. No one knows how much I actually earn. I don't have a car. I get around on a bike. I have 2 pairs of jeans and 10 white t-shirts. I communicate with my school friends just like we did many years ago. We drink beer in the park by the river, go to clubs. One night at the pub, I approached a girl. A standard approach like, "Hi, what's your name? Want to have a drink with me?" She simply said I was a bum and to leave her alone. A couple of weeks later, I went to the bank to pay taxes for my company. Guess which bank employee I ended up with? Yep, the girl from the pub. She sent me a friend request on Facebook plus a message plus friends wrote, "Guess who's interested in you?" All of this happened in one day. Usually on a first date, I invite the girl to some barbecue, 'cause it's funny and cheap. However, once I was on a date with a girl, and she decided she wanted to go to a more expensive place on the same street. Okay, I thought, she doesn't seem like a gold digger yet. I knew the restaurants in the area quite well, so I easily managed to get a table in a crowded restaurant. We sat down, and she decided to order the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu. The bottle cost around $280, and it wasn't even good wine, just expensive. We got the wine, and we ordered dishes. She ordered something for both of us. A good choice, but again, very expensive, around $140 each. Then we started talking about our jobs. She was very interested in what I do, and then she asked how much I earn. I grew up in a polite environment, so I understood everything. She was a gold digger. Once I realized that, everything fell into place. When she went to the bathroom, I called the waiter and asked him to bring us separate checks. He smirked and said he would. They brought us separate bills, and she got very upset that I invited her on a date but didn't want to pay for her. I told her I invited her to a barbecue joint, not an expensive restaurant. She stood up, started cursing, calling me a cheap ass, and made a scene. The restaurant manager came over and told her to calm down and pay the bill and just leave. Otherwise, they would put her on the restaurant's blacklist. She grabbed her purse and left with an annoyed look. I paid both bills, left a good tip for the waiter, and ordered a scotch. I'm very glad I didn't communicate with her anymore. The girl I met at the barbershop is the most memorable for me. We started talking about an NBA basketball game that was on TV while waiting for our turn. We liked each other and exchanged numbers. I suggested meeting for lunch in a couple of days. She declined, stating that she only prefers dinner dates. She suggested going to Fogo de Chao, a Brazilian steakhouse in Texas with a starting bill of $55 per person. I talked her out of it, and we ended up going to an Italian restaurant downtown. $20 per person. Everything seemed fine. We had dinner. I walked her to her car, and we said goodbye. I approached my car and was about to drive away when she called. "Hey, did you just get into a Panamera?" She invited me to join her at a bar she was going to, and I agreed. During the next hour or so that we spent together, she told me that her apartment rent was due soon, and she would love to go on a cruise with me, where we could just drink and cuddle all day. She showed me her bikini photos. Then it happened, which almost made me burst into laughter, and I decided to leave the bar under a fabricated excuse. She said she really enjoys spending time with me and wants to understand where all this can lead. So, she wants us to go on dates more often and spend time together. The only catch is she works nights but can easily take time off. She just needs money to cover her expenses while we get to know each other. I left as quickly as I could. Looking back, I probably should have slept with her at least that night and then disappeared later. I was dating a girl who seemed quite cute, but on our dates, she always chose the restaurants, and I ended up paying the bills, and that was the only thing we did together. She never invited me to a dinner she cooked. We never went to a museum or a movie, or any sports events, and we never took a walk in the park, only dinner at an expensive restaurant of her choice. Then good night. Once, I suggested that this time I would choose the place, and we could split the bill. After that, she stopped communicating with me, and we never saw each other again. The owner of the company I work for had a similar story, only he had a Ferrari 458 Italia Spider. At that time, the car was brand new. Once he came to have a meal and parked the car right in front of the restaurant. When it was time to leave, he barely touched the door handle when, I quote, "some chick opened the passenger door and sat down." When he asked her what the hell she was doing, she replied, "I'm going wherever you're going." Shocked by such audacity, my friend just sat there, staring at her in amazement. We, as military personnel, encounter a phenomenon known as tricaryatops. These are women who hunt for guys with military insurance, TRICARE. Typically, these creatures have health issues or sick children. If a lady compliments your haircut and then casually mentions that she suffers from fibromyalgia or that her child's father doesn't pay for their son's treatment, you might very well be dealing with a tricaryatops. I have written about this before. I had a personal experience with a money hunter. To begin with, I don't consider myself rich, but I earn decent money and live in a country with low living costs, so I always have plenty of disposable income. In the first year, everything between us was just perfect, so I proposed to her right away. I thought I genuinely loved her. 6 months later, we got married. I threw a huge wedding that cost around $75,000. I paid for everything because neither her parents nor my mom had any money. But a few days after the wedding, I noticed she started behaving differently, and I realized I had married a gold digger. All this time, she was just playing a role, thinking she could marry me, then get a divorce and take some of my money. However, she turned out to be a decent actress to keep up the act for so long. A week after the wedding, I told her that we were getting divorced and kicked her out of the house. The divorce process itself took quite some time. I dated a woman who never paid for anything when we went out. Not even a tip for the waiter at a cafe. However, she always wore expensive clothes, constantly hung out with friends in upscale places, and had a lavish lifestyle. Once I asked her about it, but she gave some vague excuse, claiming she didn't earn much at work and had huge bills to pay. When I mentioned that I wanted to move and needed to start saving money, she suddenly disappeared. I dated a girl for about 6 months who repeatedly hinted that she had always dreamed of finding a sugar daddy so she could shop instead of working. It was quite obvious that these hints were meant to lead to me becoming her sugar daddy. However, I won't sign up for such nonsense under any circumstances. Then I found out that she had been cheating on me with other guys for several months. Needless to say, I immediately asked her to leave me alone, delete my number, and never try to contact me again. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, left a comment of more than 4 words, and subscribe to this channel, we greatly appreciate you. Much respect from us. Stay tuned for the next video.